Now comes the last section with these basic conditions, how they are violated, and how behavioral economics can work with it, the endowment effect. An important paper on it was Bateman et al. And as you know, all the references can be found in the annotated bibliography on my homepage, as indicated before. This one also. The endowment effect is combining framing effects and loss aversion. That way it generates these basic well, irrationalities maybe. Framing effects means that you have different ways of presenting the same situation. The only difference is that you frame it in different manners. Often you find empirically that that already makes a difference, that subject behave then differently in those two framings, although rationally speaking, it should not matter because it is the same situation. That's the term framing effects. And loss aversion means, let me put it like this, losses loom larger than gains. That is, if people can deal with losses or with equally big gains, they feel the losses more than the gains. People are maybe over-focused on losses, over-sensitive to losses, maybe. That is loss aversion, and you can read about it in this Kahneman-Tversky 79 paper, for instance. And now here comes a characteristic finding of the endowment effect. In an experiment, subjects were given a coffee mug, and they, for a minute or so, they got used to the situation of possessing the coffee mug. Then they were asked willingness to accept the question. That is, they were asked, for how much money are you willing to sell that mug? Tell me the minimum amount. So if we pay more, you give it, and if we pay less, you don't give it. This was done in a very good experiment, incentive compatible, such that it was in the interest of the subject to really say exactly the money amount that is appropriate here, and not to misperceive bargaining deals or something. So experiment well done, so that they should tell exactly the money amount equivalent to the mug. That's of course the right answer here. Later, or other subjects, can be within or between, but anyway, subjects were asked willingness to pay. They were just asked, they were not endowed with a mug, but they were just asked, look here, you see that mug? How much do you want to pay to get that mug? So how much do you want to pay to buy that mug? Then, of course, the money amount you want to pay should be equally good as the mug, if you're rational, normatively speaking. If you combine these things, it means that the money amount X that you get here and the money amount Y that you get here should be the same. Maybe a small income effect, but in this stage of the course, we can be pragmatic and practically speaking, you understand they must be the same. Okay, and of course, you know already, paradox coming, empirical studies with human beings, they find big differences. They find a factor 2 difference. Imagine, they find usually that willingness to accept is twice as big as willingness to pay. Even if these experiments are very well done, incentive compatible, you know, really no normative rational reason for doing so. This is well known. This is the willingness to pay, willingness to accept discrepancy. And because these methods are often used to measure valuations, so it's a big problem in economics. Maybe if you think a bit more, you can see how framing is being used here, because we ignore the income effect, right? Objectively speaking, the first question and the second question are the same. They are how much money is equally good as the mug. But only by framing it in one situation, it's framed as if you giving up the mug means losing the mug. And in the other situation, it doesn't feel like losing the mug. That's why in the second framing, loss aversion comes in. And that's why people are so much more defensive here. And they want much more money than here. Here they feel they give up the mug, they feel it twice as much as here where they get the mug, even if it's the same mug. So that's how framing and loss aversion make this happen. And it's, of course, rationally speaking, this could not be. So one of the many other puzzles, and this has many implications in application, you know, because many people use willingness to pay, willingness to accept to measure how people feel about things. So I already explained that this is the endowment effect. It's the same roughly as loss aversion, already explained. Now an application of this, and here comes a text from a Thaler 1980 paper, and I'm not going to read it. You can read it yourself, pause the video, then read it, and then come back. So you can pause the video now. Okay, I continue. I assume you read it now. And then you've seen in this story, I hope you see that this is an example. Surcharge is one formulation, cash discount is the other formulation, and they are perceived differently, but they amount to the same thing. It's just different formulation, different framings of the same thing. And that matters in practice. Normatively speaking, it should not matter, but in practice, psychologically speaking, it should matter a lot. That is why the credit card lobby was really strong in trying to get it as cash discount perceived. People wouldn't feel it so much then. Another example of the endowment effect, how these behavioral phenomena can be very important in applications. There has been a story about, I think 15 or 20 years ago, there was in Germany a minister. He proposed that people without children should pay more tax, extra tax, relative to people with children. Now, as economists, that's the same as saying that people with children should pay less tax, that they get a tax reduction that amounts to the same. But in the one situation, loss aversion endowment effect come in, the other doesn't. And so this minister had to resign his position. Everybody protested, the whole country was upset, simply because he chose the unfortunate formulation. He was not aware of these phenomena, these behavioral phenomena. Had he known about it, he would still maybe have his job today. He lost his career because of it. So you see, there can be big implications for these kind of things. Okay. Remarkable, already long ago, there was a mention of the endowment effect. It went back as far as Bentham, Jeremy Bentham. He's often credited, right, so for being the first to really introduce the concept of utility. Though Ben, we also had a bit, but Bentham really did it. And he immediately wrote, he said, if you want to make people work hard for you, labor force, then pay them high salary and give them punishment for bad performance. That works better than give them lower salary and give them rewards for good performance. Even if in terms it amounts to the same, it's just a different formulation of the same thing. But this, people feel punishment more than reward. That's why he recommended doing this for a number of reasons. It's not done today, but strictly speaking, in that sense, he was right. But also, this was already the endowment effect that he was aware of. So there you see that these endowment effect and many of the other psychological effects have been known as long as mankind exists almost. So in that sense, they are not so very new. But the novelty of behavioral economics is that in classical economics, people did not know how to incorporate these things and ignore them. And behavioral economics is borrowing a lot from psychology and mathematics, and it is providing the tools that we can really model those things in a way that economists want. We can quantify them and do economic business with them. That's the way of working of the behavioral approach. Okay, so now we come to final words of this recording, but that will be in the next file. So stop the recording here.